A warm welcome to the newsroom. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Another batch of 86 stranded Nigerians have arrived the country from Sudan. They arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport on Friday. Chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Abike Dabiri Erewa, who disclosed this in a tweet, said the returnees will immediately embark on 14-day isolation in line with the guidelines set by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC. This brings the total number of arrivals from Sudan to 231 after 145 Nigerians were repatriated from the North African country last week. For the first time in weeks, the number of COVID-19 patients discharged in one day exceeded the figure of new cases recorded across Nigeria. According to the NCDC, 649 people were discharged from various isolation centers around the country on Thursday. The agency, however, reported that 626 new cases were recorded in 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Also, 13 more people were confirmed to have died of COVID-19 complications on Thursday. Out of a total of 27,110 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in 35 states and the Federal Capital Territory, 10,801 patients have recovered, while 616 deaths have occurred. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Health Minister Osagi Ehanire says more research is being done to ascertain the effectiveness of COVID organics, a purported cure for COVID-19 manufactured in Madagascar. Ehanire, who said this at the briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja on Thursday, also revealed that the major ingredient used in manufacturing the drug is a plant that grows in Nigeria.
Preliminary results of analysis of the so-called Madagascar herbs or organics done by the Nigeria Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development shows that it is the same plant called Artemisia annua, which is grown in nitrate farms in Abuja. Further research on its efficacy will be conducted when the grant for the research is approved. As the chairman of PTF has already reported, the incident at the Federal Medical Center in Lokoja, in which gunmen went on the attack, this has been reported to the president, and further action will come from there.
That is our COVID-19 coverage. We'll take a break to bring you more stories. Don't go away.
Hello, I'm Dr. Taufik Adebayo, consultant orthopedic spine surgeon at National Orthopedic Hospital, Bovile, Lagos. I'm here on the platform of Scoliosis Focus Initiative program on World Scoliosis Day. Scoliosis is an abnormal sideway curvature of the spine with some rotation. These patients present with uneven shoulders, a hump in the back, and uneven pelvis. Majority of these cases are painless. Up to 5% of our population have scoliosis, and majority of them are idiopathic, meaning that the cause is unknown. You need a thorough history examination with quality X-ray to make an assessment. Your doctor will advise you on the best treatment modality for your child. Scoliosis Focus Initiative is organizing a 2 weeks free online consultation to help you during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Welcome back. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the immediate, compulsory and indefinite suspension of Adebayo Shittu, the Managing Director and Chief Executive of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, NSITF. A statement on Thursday from the head of press and public relations at the Ministry of Labour and Employment, Charles Akman, revealed that the president also suspended 11 top officials of the agency. According to the statement, their suspensions from office arose from the preliminary established primary facie infractions on the Extant Financial Regulations and Procurement Act and other acts of gross misconduct. Meanwhile, Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige has directed the Regional General Manager in charge of the Ibadan region, Temitope Akinwale, to take charge as General Manager in charge of Finance and to concurrently oversee the office of the Executive Director of Finance and Investment as the Acting Executive Director. National leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, says there is no crisis in the ruling party. He made the declaration shortly after a closed-door meeting with Governor Malabuni, chairman of the APC Caretaker Committee, and other members of the group. Tinubu, addressing journalists after the meeting, said, quote, "There is no crisis in the party, hence no fight to reconcile." He further stressed that the committee is a consultation and not a reconciliation committee, since nobody is fighting anyone. The National Executive Council of the APC last month dissolved its National Working Committee following a leadership crisis that was triggered by the suspension of its national chairman, Adams Oshomole. It thereafter set up a caretaker committee to oversee the affairs of the party for the next 6 months. With 4 days to the commencement of domestic flights in Nigeria after about 3 months of lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government has assured the general public that aircraft have been put through rigorous checks and are therefore safe for boarding. Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika, who gave the assurance when he appeared before lawmakers at the Senate on Thursday, also added that airport authorities are committed to ensuring the provision of necessary safety protocols of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We decided to open these airports beginning from July 8th, but of course it is very apparent that we can't open at once for obvious reasons. We have to stagger the opening. So we opened the first set of the airports on July 8th, and 3 days after, July 11th, we opened another set of airports, and then on the 15th, which is also about 4 days after the second opening, we opened all other airports. This staggering is a clever way from us to be able to, one, test run the system, two, be able to improve our preparedness, three, we thought of the geo locations of these airports to ensure that the entire country is being served once we open.
We'll probably be looking at the challenges confronting the aviation and how you intend to weather the storm of the consequences of the COVID-19. There's one industry or one sector that's been seriously affected by the COVID-19 is the aviation. And once the aviation is crippled, the economy itself nosedive. So it is very important that we are here. And I think I must equally emphasize that as we gradually move towards the end of this year, we'll be looking at areas that will require legislative assistance in the area of budgeting. So we can know the areas that will require attention when we start talking about the budget 2021.
Well, let's now talk business. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, says the planned hike in electricity tariff is coming at a wrong time. The Senate leader said this when he and his House of Representatives counterpart, Femi Gbajabiamila, paid a visit to President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja. Both leaders charged discos to shelve the planned hike and work towards improving their services to customers before making such move.
Yeah, of course, the National Assembly leadership approached the Mr. President last week to discuss the possibility of suspending increase in electricity tariff in the country that was supposed to take effect from 1st of July. This is a continuing discussion. Thank God the announcement has not been made by the discourse, and we believe that there are supposed to be actions to precede such an announcement. The discourse must provide the electricity in the first place. The timing for any increase is not now. Definitely Nigerians are in a situation where if you cannot give them enough palliatives, you should not overburden them with additional responsibilities. So that has been settled.
It's important that I also make this point, that even when we do have the quote-unquote cost-reflective tariff or the hike, it's not going to be for everybody. We're working out a situation similar. That point needs to be made, where it's the top echelon, so to speak, for want of a better way to put it, of the society, perhaps I think 15% of the society, that the increase speaks to, not the general 80-85% of the rest of the country. So in effect, a system whereby that 15-20% will be subsidizing the rest of the 80%. So whenever it happens, I need to make this point, whenever it happens, the assurances that we have been given is that it's not a general increase for all of Nigeria. It's only for people like you, highbrow, rich, wealthy, affluent people like you.
Nigeria's debt profile has risen to over 28 trillion naira as at March 31st, 2020. The Debt Management Office disclosed this on its website on Thursday. In its public debt profile report released on Thursday night, the DMO explained that the country's total debts rose from 27.4 trillion naira recorded in December 2019 to 28.63 trillion in March 2020. This indicates that within a space of 3 months, the country's public debt profile grew by 1.2 trillion naira, representing 4.48% increase. French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe and his government have tendered their resignation, which President Emmanuel Macron has accepted. The Elysee Palace announced that Philippe had submitted the government's resignation but would remain as head of an interim government until Macron carried out a reshuffle and named his successor. In French government reshuffles, if the French government reshuffles, the Prime Minister tenders his or her resignation before cabinet appointment but can still be renamed to the position. Philippe's future as Prime Minister had been in doubt for several weeks, and on Sunday he was re-elected mayor of Le Havre with a large majority. It was not immediately clear whether Philippe would be called upon to form the new government. Bayern Munich have signed German international winger Leroy Sane from Manchester City for at least 5 years. The club announced this in a statement released on Friday without giving a transfer price. The 24-year-old will start preparing for next season in Munich next week, meaning he will sit out Saturday's German Cup final against Bayern Leverkusen in Berlin. Last year, Sane reportedly been on the verge of a 3-digit million euro transfer to Bayern before suffering a serious knee injury in August, which sidelined him until February. After rebuilding his fitness, the German international made his first Premier League appearance of the season as a substitute against Burnley last week. And that's the latest from the newsroom. Many thanks for joining us. Bye for now.